As your practice grows, it's so important to be able to stay organized and keep on top of things, especially when it comes to documentation, filing insurance claims, keeping appointments straight, and getting reminders to people. Well, there's a great solution for all of that, and that is TherapyNotes. TherapyNotes is the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. It's who I use in my practice. And so go check them out today, therapynotes.com. And if you use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, you can get 2 months free. So check them out today, therapynotes.com. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 148 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're listening to the podcast. And if you're coming to us for the first time, listening in for the first time, welcome. Glad you're here. Glad you're a part of this journey with me. And hope you'll come back and subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review and all those kinds of fun things. And so, so it's hard to believe we're already into October, and it's really been a strange year, hasn't it? Just a lot of crazy stuff going on this year, and we're already into the fourth quarter as I hold up my four fingers. So we're kind of winding down towards the end of the year, or kind of the end of the year is in sight, and sure do hope that 2021 is going to be much different, but we still got 3 months left, and lots of great stuff to come. I know for me, things are starting to kind of feel a little normal. Certainly we've got a whole different routine, and COVID unfortunately is going to be with us for a while. So still wearing masks, really kind of limiting the number of people get around, and just washing hands and all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to go on for a while. But anyway, I got my flu shot this past week. So that was, and went to my doctor's appointment for just kind of my annual checkup, and everything was great. My blood work was nearly perfect. So I'm kind of celebrating that fact because I'm just really trying to develop some better eating habits and all that kind of stuff. So starting to pay off. So, I think, like many people, I hit the COVID-15, just with, when COVID hit, was just doing a lot of cooking at home and, doing things like sourdough bread and all that kind of fun stuff. But, anyway, we're moving out of that. I got a lot going on. A few weeks ago, I did a webinar with my friend, Dr. David Hall, and it was just the webinar was about going from solo practice to group practice, and that's been a theme that we've kind of had here lately. And we've launched a beta course called the Group Practice Outfitter. And it's an intensive course. It's going to be this beta version of it is going to be a live event. Unfortunately, that sold out for us. I mean, we were limiting the number of people that were going to allow to join that group, just because we wanted to be for it to be intensive, and we're going to hold to that. I say unfortunately for those of you that might want to get in on that beta course. But the good news is, so we're going to launch a course from that. And if you'd like to get on the wait list for that, in case we have anybody drop out of the beta group, you can go to practiceoftherapy.com/group practice outfitter. Again, practiceoftherapy.com/group practice outfitter, and you can get your name on the wait list there. And with this particular course or seminar, what we're doing is just walking people through the process and working with people about taking their practice from a solo practice to a group practice and going through all of the nuts and bolts of that and things you need to know in terms of hiring people, of being able to scale up in that way. So anyway, it's there. Get your name on the list. We'd love to make sure that you get information about future events around this particular topic. So, yeah. So also, as far as events go, I've got coming up at the end of October, my friend James Marlin over at Move Forward Virtual Assistants, and he's been a guest here on the podcast a few times. They're hosting a summit, and it's called the Scale Up Summit. And that's going to be October 20th through the 23rd. And again, much like Killing It Camp, which as this is coming out, Killing It Camp is going on during the week of this particular episode. But anyway, it's going to be in some ways a similar format, but it's really going to be around, again, some forums and question and answer and that sort of thing that people can sign up for. And this is a free event, so be sure to sign up for that. I'll have links in the show notes here for that, but actually the URL is just moveforwardvirtualassistants.com/scale up. And again, those links will be in the show notes here. But I invite you to sign up for that. I'm going to be one of the forum members there, and I'm going to be just talking about the use of technology in our practices. But I know there's a lot of great speakers for that. Julie Harris, that you know from Green Oak Accounting, is going to be part of that. Whitney Owens, who is a good friend, and she's going to be there. Also, we've got Michelle Hardman, who's been on the podcast before, is going to be part of that, and Joe Sanok, just to name a few, and Allison Pigeon, who was in last week's podcast episode. A lot of great speakers and a lot of people that you can hear from during that summit. So I invite you again to go sign up for that. Again, you can get to that at moveforwardvirtualassistants.com/scale up. So I'm grateful to James and his group for putting this together. So lots of great stuff coming out in the month of October. So I'm really looking forward to you hearing from my guest today. I've got Veronica Cisneros, who is on the podcast. And Veronica is just, when you hear her, you're going to really realize she's just a really dynamic person to hear from. And she is just really really passionate about what she's doing in terms of empowering people, particularly moms and those people that are parents, to really look at taking care of yourself and self-care, which is so important, because I think a lot of times we can get just really busy in our lives and really kind of get our priorities askew. So I want you to hear from her, and looking forward to you hearing from her. But before we get to Veronica, I'd like to invite you to go over and check out Green Oak Accounting at greenoakaccounting.com. You know, one of the places that people can struggle the most in their practices is not really having a clear picture of the financial side of things. And the secret to increasing profitability isn't always in growth. It's in knowing how to interpret and react to accurate financial information. Your finances will be telling you a story, and if you don't know how to read it or know what's going on, you might not know what's going to happen next. So Green Oak Accounting and Julie and her team over there can help you understand your data and look at your numbers to have a clear picture, to really kind of understand how to be more profitable. That all they do is work with therapists, and that is their specialty. So they know our our profession. They know what goes on within private practices. So they're your go-to people. So whether you're looking for ongoing support, a one-time consultation, or need just some cleanup with your QuickBooks or any of that sort of thing, they can help you. So be sure and check them out today. Green Oak Accounting, just greenoakaccounting.com, and be sure and let them know that you heard about them here on the podcast. And speaking of podcasts, be sure and check out Julie Harris's podcast, Therapy for Your Money. Julie is a good friend, and she's done a lot of stuff with us here at the Practice of Therapy, and I'm so grateful to have them as a sponsor for the podcast. And we'll have links here in the show notes to get you over to Julie's podcast to hear more specifically around the financial side of private practice. But again, check them out, greenoakaccounting.com, and they'll do a free consultation with you to find out what your needs are and help you get you going in the right direction. And so, without further ado, here's my friend Veronica Cisneros, and I'm looking forward to you listening in on our conversation just about being empowered and unapologetic. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Practice of Therapy podcast. And I'm so excited for you to get to know Veronica Cisneros. And I got to hear Veronica on the Practice of the Practice podcast. I believe that's where I heard you first, Veronica. And she was one that I reached out to and said, I've got to have you on the podcast. And she's graciously accepted to be here, and we're recording it very early in the morning for her, so I'm even more grateful. So welcome, Veronica. Yes. So as I start with most everyone, why don't you tell folks a little bit about your therapy journey and I know you're an MFT as well, mm-hmm. and just how you've kind of landed where you've landed.
Absolutely. So never imagined in my entire life that the dream of becoming a therapist and owning a private practice would actually happen. And nobody's ever taught me how to be an entrepreneur. And so I decided, after going to grad school, I was going to go ahead and learn as much as I could, as much as possible. Worked for a partial hospitalization program, fell in love with it, fell in love with our patients, and ended up hearing Joe Sanok, which is a mutual friend of ours. Uh-huh. And I listened to his podcast. I remember having a conversation with him and him telling me, Veronica, what are you doing? Like, you're still at the hospital and you have this successful practice. And I remember telling him, well, there's no way possible I can ever just go out on my own and even be like successful without the hospital. I get all my clients from the hospital. So I had a lot of that self-doubt. Mm-hmm. And then in addition to that, there was just complete fear, if I'm being absolutely honest. It was complete fear because I didn't want to fail. And there was this immense fear of failure. And so ended up taking that leap, going out on my own. And now I have 9 employees, which is ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah.
And so through this journey of having my private practice and then it turning into a group practice, one thing I started to notice in my private practice working with women is that they were all suffering from the same issue. They didn't know who they were outside of all of the roles they play. They were so defined by being a mom. And although being a mom is absolutely amazing and it's this blessing, we do get lost in it. Mm-hmm. And if I take it even further, there were a lot of women who also got lost in their careers where they would leave the house and stay at work for really long hours. And I know a lot of us therapists are guilty of this. We get validation from our clients and the progress that they're making and being a part of their journey, that they trust us. We don't necessarily get that validation when we're home and our kids are telling us, what do you know, mom? Mm-hmm. And so I've noticed that most women have a hard time figuring out who they are outside of the roles they play. And that ended up being my mission. although I still have my private practice, I developed Empowered and Unapologetic as a platform to establish a community of women who were able to go ahead and share some of these issues and say these things out loud and have this platform where they can learn skills, establish validation, and really practice mindfulness, developing this life that they want to live.
Right, right. Yeah, that I think that is so huge, and that I think, and I think it's true for a lot of us. We get into kind of this role, and we can really kind of fill our plates too full by trying to be everything to everyone. And I think especially as parents, it's also, we tend to probably overdo when it comes to our kids sometimes. And then we feel guilty for not, thinking we're not living up to the mark. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So what sort of themes do you see with the people that you work with, and just a little bit about your approach in working with people around these issues?
A lot of us lack vulnerability, and it's interesting because we're therapists and we encourage vulnerability. However, I see that often, especially with women again. And it's this fear of being exposed. If I'm exposed, what are other women going to think? And if I'm exposed, what would this look like? What would this look like if somebody really knew my reality? If somebody really knew that I wasn't in a happy marriage? If somebody knew that I had trouble connecting? And to be honest, I found myself in that role a couple months after my daughter was born. My husband and I were 1 month away from divorce. And my entire identity, and I wasn't even aware of this, my entire identity was focused and based off of me being a wife and a mother, and that was it. I didn't know anything else. And so I ask women, when you take away those roles, who are you? And I will ask your audience the same question. Okay, so I understand you're a therapist. I understand you're a mom. But when we take out those roles, who are you? When's the last time you engaged in one of your hobbies or worked out or did something for you? Most of the time I met with, I don't know who I am. And I don't have any hobbies because I don't even know what I like. I know what my kids like. I know what my husband likes, but I don't know what I like.
Right. Right. So how did you discover that? And it sounds like, as I hear it, it's obviously something you're very passionate about, and I can detect that. And so how did you figure that out? What was the real you, is maybe a way of thinking about that.
Absolutely. It was thinking about what are my current frustrations? What's currently going on? And, one of them was, I want to have this routine, and I want to wake up in the morning, and I want to work out, and I want to meditate, and I want to read, and I want to do this, this, and this. And those are all of the things that I wanted to do. And I thought about, okay, well, what is the life I want to live? Well, I want to be a connected and exceptional mom. I want to be a connected and exceptional wife. Okay, what is standing in my way? What's honestly standing in my way? Because I can recite a positive affirmation. I can read a book. I can, set my alarm clock. I can do all of those things that most coaches and most people say to do. However, very few people ask, what's really standing in your way? And that required me to really, really look at myself and what I was doing, why I was doing it. And what I realized was that I didn't feel like I was deserving. My kids' school, my husband's job, my house, even my house was at a higher ranking than myself. Wow. So I couldn't do that until my house was clean. I couldn't do that until everything I needed to do for my husband was done, or everything I needed to do for my kids was done. So it really took me just looking at my life and how I wanted to change it. And that repeated over and over, that I wasn't worth it. So I started challenging it. And I started creating the perfect day, my idea of the perfect day. And if you have kids, there is no perfect day.
Right.
at all. And I asked myself throughout the day, what does this look like? Okay, so I woke up at 9 and I wanted to wake up at 6, because it's the weekend. Give yourself grace. Okay, so I want to, do I really want to wash those dishes, or do I really want to just jump in the pool? And so I jumped in the pool, and each time started giving myself permission to go out and do the things I wanted to do. And it left me vulnerable. However, at the same time, it empowered me.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the name Empowered and Unapologetic, because I started to live my life unapologetically, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I'm reminded of a metaphor that I use with my clients, and it sounds like you're really living into this and trying to teach others to live into this. Is back in the days when we could fly, when you get on a plane, the first thing they do before you take off is go through that safety routine, and they talk about the cabin losing pressure and oxygen masks coming down, and they always tell you put your own on first before you try to help anyone else. And I think that's one of the things that happens is we neglect our own self-care at the expense of the people we're trying to help. Because
Absolutely.
if we're not taking care of ourselves, it really incapacitates us to do those things that we really want to do. At the heart of things, you still want to help your kids, you still want to help your husband. All of those things don't go away. It's not that the desire's not there. It's just that you didn't have the energy for it.
Well, yes. And, my first podcast episode was Girl, Put Your Bra On First.
Yes. I remember that. Yes. That's the one I heard now that you said that. I remember now. And it caught my, I'd love for you to share that story if you could. Yeah.
No, yes, of course. And so that ended up becoming my routine. I would wake up to the checklist, run around like a crazy mad woman, yelling at my kids because, of course, we're late and they're late for school. And this is at the time that we were actually going to school. But I found myself just irritated the moment I woke up and running downstairs, to go make breakfast, burning the food, running back upstairs to make sure my kids actually woke up. And then trying to go ahead and get my little monkey, she's 9, trying to get her dressed. And it's this ongoing battle of, Mom, that doesn't match. I can't believe you're going to make me go out like this. I'm not into teddy bears. I'm into unicorns now. Get with the program. And I'm doing all of this, trying to get all of my 3 girls ready while cooking, while trying to go ahead and maintain some form of sanity. And my husband meets me downstairs looking all GQ. And with his coffee in hand, mind you, not at all helping me with lunch, not at all helping me with breakfast, even combing somebody's hair. Like none of that happened. And one thing I realized is it's not necessarily out of exhaustion. And this is where your listeners might not like me. It's our own fault. Why didn't I ask for help? And don't get me wrong, ladies, I get it. Some of our husbands maybe not be as supportive as we'd like them to be. However, what is the foundation that you set? What is the foundation that you both set? Because you both did this. As therapists, we know it's 50-50 off the bat, right? What boundaries have you set? How have you asserted yourself? Have you asked for help? And I never asked my husband for help. So I would end up getting into that car, screaming and yelling, totally upset at my husband, resentful, passive aggressive. It must be good. It must feel so good to take a shower. And then looking down, realizing that I looked like the hired help and my husband looked amazing. So embarrassed to get out of the car to go ahead and kiss my daughter, goodbye while she enjoys her day at school. Not only that, the guilt and shame I felt for screaming and introducing that to the day. And I knew there's something that had to change. And I was a part of that change. And so again, a lot of self-reflection. And I can blame my kids. I can blame my kids' schedule. I can blame my husband. I can do all of those things, or I can take action. And that's what I decided to do. I decided to take action. And would you believe it? My husband would comb their hair. My husband would go downstairs and make breakfast and lunch. And we had this routine. all I had to do was ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Literally ask for help. And don't get me wrong, there were times my husband combed Monkey's hair and there was bumps everywhere and it looked like a mess. I wasn't going to complain about it because it was getting done. I had to let go of perfection.
Right. Right. I love that. I love that story because as a matter of fact, I'll share with you, Veronica, that I've thought about taking that podcast and giving it to a lot of my clients.
Yeah.
Because I hear that, it's not only for us that are therapists that do that, but I think it's just a very human problem, and that we don't ask for what we need. And it's like we just assume that others know what we need. And
yes.
And then the other part of it too is a lot of times we just don't know what we need.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And it's not until we're in those binds, feeling completely frustrated, that we realize, okay, wait a minute, I can't do this. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So what, this might be a little bit of a strange question, maybe not. What are some of the habits you have now that have been really transformative for you, not only as a mom, but also as a therapist and all of that sort of thing? Yeah.
Vulnerability, 100% vulnerability. And what I mean by that is I can live unapologetically by being vulnerable. That might mean that I might be subjected to some criticism, which I have. Us moms know that if somebody walks into your house with dirty dishes in the sink, you might get that side eye, especially by our mother-in-laws. There might be some form of judgment, and doing it anyway. The minute you give yourself permission to go ahead and be vulnerable, be your true, authentic self, whatever that is, there's so much freedom and peace in it, because I'm no longer attempting to go ahead and meet your needs or meet my husband's needs or meet my kids' needs. I am being my true, authentic self, which in turn provides my family with exactly what they want. Less expectations, ladies. Less expectations, because I'm able to accept my family for who they are and who they're not, because I've accepted myself for who I am and who I'm not. Given myself grace. Right.
I love that. Yeah. I think we can set the bar really high and do the other trap that I think a lot of us fall into is just getting into a trap of comparing ourselves to others.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah. Of just
love that you said that.
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, our own way of doing things is the way to do it, and it's not. You don't have to do it like somebody else.
I have learned. I'm so glad you said that, Gordon. I have learned so much about vulnerability. Here's why. For so long, I handled all of the finances, and I gave them to my husband. The first couple of months, there was a bunch of bills late. We got that pink letter in the mail saying that our electricity was going to be turned off because he just forgot. It wasn't that we didn't have the money. He just forgot to pay it. However, the minute I let it go, my husband was able to make so much more better decisions than I was, because I was handling money emotionally, where it was just very much black and white for him. And I learned so much from it. So yes, being able to go out and let go, being able to know that we're not the only ones that can do everything. Right. I love that. So to shift gears a little bit, tell folks a little bit about your practice and particularly your podcast and your coaching. Absolutely. So Empowered and Unapologetic, we have a free Facebook group. And you can search Empowered and Unapologetic, and I gave you the link so you can put that in the show notes. Yep, sure we will. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a community for women. Listen to the podcast. We have challenges, and we really just we really provide this ability to go ahead and say whatever you need to say. No judgment, no criticism. We're all here to support one another, not take it on. Then I also have a VIP membership, and in that VIP membership, there's weekly coaching. And so in weekly coaching, we're setting up goals. We're challenging each other. The group is challenging and engaging and really discussing their wins, and even some of the issues that they just can't seem to go ahead and work through. So this platform provides them with the ability and the tools to go ahead and live unapologetically.
Mm-hmm.
The podcast is focused on me putting myself out there and sharing some of my stories that I know are relatable. And I know they're relatable because of the clients I see and the people that I coach, and even my friends and family. You know, the minute we start talking, the minute they've listened to my episodes, they're like, oh my gosh, Veronica, okay, so that totally happened to me yesterday or whatever. But it's really me being me and sharing with the world that, listen, I don't have a perfect life by any means. However, I can tell you one thing. I'm about to celebrate my 21st anniversary. And one thing I absolutely love about my husband is I love the way he loves me. And I wouldn't be able to experience that if I wasn't living unapologetically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's you're so right. And we, again, as therapists, particularly as marriage and family therapists, we know this is that until a person is able to love themselves, it's very difficult to receive love from others.
100%.
And I think, yeah. And so I think that's kind of where it starts. I mean, we have a relationship, you know, our relationships and our interaction patterns are important, but we also have a relationship with ourselves. And I think that's where we can affect change, is by changing ourselves and looking at how we see ourselves and how we interact with ourselves in our internal world. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, oh boy. So I know, Veronica, I wish we weren't on opposite ends of the country and we could get together for coffee, because this is just a lot of fun to talk about. But I want to be respectful of your time, and tell folks again, just how they can get in touch with you if they want to do more.
Absolutely. So you can find me at empoweredandunapologetic.com, on Instagram, Empowered and Unapologetic.
Okay. All right. And well, as we said earlier, we'll have that in the show notes and the show summary. Any parting thoughts before we call it a day?
Absolutely. So I know I've been addressing the ladies. I'm going to give it both to the ladies and the fellas. I want to leave with this question. And it's a question I ask all of my guests when they're on my podcast. What are you doing right now to live the life you want to live? And I want you to think about that. I want you to answer it. And I want you to post it in my free Facebook group, because I want to hear from you.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Well, thanks again, Veronica, for being here. And be sure to check her out. And her podcast is great. I've listened to some of the episodes, so be sure. I mean, it's even though she addresses mainly towards moms and women and that sort of thing, we dads can pick up a lot of good stuff there.
Amen.
Too.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So thanks, Veronica.
Thank you so much for having me, Gordon. This was amazing.
Yeah, this was great. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Veronica and listening in on my conversation with her. I know I just enjoyed getting to know her better and really hearing her speak truth to some things that I think a lot of us need to be more aware of, and that is our own self-care and not getting caught up too much in the expectations we imagine others have for us, and living into something that is just not genuine and true to ourselves. So I'm so glad that Veronica joined me. And be sure and check out her website and also her podcast. It's again, you can get to that at empoweredandunapologetic.com, and be sure and check it out. And there'll be links here in the show summary and the show notes to get you there. So be easy to look at. So also big thanks to our sponsors for the podcast, TherapyNotes.com. TherapyNotes is the leading electronic health record system for private practices and also in the mental health field. They're who I use in my practice, and they've got all the resources and support that you'll need to have an efficient, well-running, well-oiled machine as far as your practice goes. Again, they're who I use in my practice and couldn't do without them. They've got a patient portal that's second to none. So be sure and check them out. And if you'll use the coupon code, just Gordon, Gordon, you can get 2 months of their services for free. So check them out today, TherapyNotes.com. And also be sure and check out our other sponsor for today's episode, and that is Green Oak Accounting. Green Oak Accounting specializes in working with private practice owners. In fact, that's what they do exclusively. So they know our business, know our profession well. And so they can talk to you in a way that you understand, and you don't have to your eyes don't have to glaze over around the financial side of things. And they will make sure that you're profitable and make sure you meet the goals that you need for your practice. So be sure and check them out, greenoakaccounting.com, and be sure and let them know that you heard about them here on the podcast. And they'll do a free consultation with you to get you started. So check them out today. And also just a reminder about the upcoming summit that is being sponsored by the folks over at Move Forward Virtual Assistants. That event is called the Scale Up Services Summit, and you can find out more about that at moveforwardvirtualassistants.com/scale up. And that's going to be October 30th through the 23rd. And they've got a bunch of great speakers lined up for that. And so invite you to go over and register for that. And it's, again, with a lot of the things that we're doing this year, we're doing it virtually. And so this will be a great opportunity to hear from some other private practice leaders and get some more information. And so I think that's about it for today, for this particular episode. I'm so glad you've joined me. Be sure and take time to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And be sure and go to the Practice of Therapy, practiceoftherapy.com, and check out all the resources we've got there. Just constantly adding to them, and got some great events coming up and great opportunities to learn more and help you be successful in your practice. So be sure and check it out. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it, whether it be on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify, or iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Be sure and hit that subscribe button and leave us a review too. That always helps us out and helping boost the ratings and all that kind of good stuff, so other people can find out about us, and share it with your friends. Hit the little share button whenever you listen to the podcast, and let them know about it. So take care, folks. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend, whenever you might be listening to this. You have been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.